Maybe not.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yes. Hi. Welcome to the Deep End. Mike Shope, Adam Krautwurst. I feel like Adam's background tonight looks like he could be on a ship. Maybe it looks more like you're outside a ship. So just, in those classic Adam Krautwurst subtle ways, bringing more to the table as we start week 7 and the Deep End. You agree? It looks like
I'm
seaworthy.
floating. Yeah, that's right. I'm swimming. I'm swimming tonight in the deep end. I love it.
You have your snorkel and everything you need, your wetsuit.
That's right. I got my drink. I'm good to go.
I am hoping that in 3 weeks, I will be in the deep end of the ocean for this show.
Yes, you will.
I don't know if that's going to be, that'll be Maui.
Maui. Woo!
I don't know if that'll be possible, but one way or another, I will get you a remote broadcast.
Something. Yeah, I need like a sunset villa, something or, something.
Something. Yeah, it's long overdue. Welcome to week 7. First things first, I know you, from all your tweets, thank you. You want to know what happened with the beef noodle casserole.
I did.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. It's become really one of my favorite things to eat that I make. It's not my favorite thing to cook, but I do like to eat it, and my son Julius likes to eat it, so that feels good. You don't want to just have to eat the whole thing. The kids say no, and my wife's a vegetarian. So, casseroles may be underrated.
Yeah. So what makes I've heard of tuna noodle casserole. I think I've probably had that.
Would you ever turn that down?
Tuna noodle?
I mean, you're not going to go out to your fancy, swanky Rochester eateries,
of course,
and order the tuna noodle casserole if they even have it. But would you ever be disappointed if you got home from work and there were a tuna noodle casserole sitting there? You would eat it.
I would never complain about any food sitting there for me.
Okay,
from work. But beef noodle sounds delicious. So it sounds incredible.
Egg noodles, some spices, some Worcestershire sauce.
Egg noodles are so underrated.
Oh.
I feel you just make them. You just put just some butter in the pan. That's all you need.
That's right. You want more, but you can get by with just the butter and the egg noodles. But definitely, in a noodle draft, if you could just draft egg, I think you would. It'd be up the first round. Okay, enough silliness. So here we go into round 2 or week 7, round 2. What am I even thinking about? The Draftsharks Invitational. Let's check in on that. It's not been my year, but we did have Scott Fish on last week. He is not on this week, so I thought I could wear a fishbowl shirt.
That's right.
And he was contending when last week checked, and he still is.
He is. Yeah. Here's the updated. I just did them. Sorry for everyone waiting with bated breath all day for me to update it, but here we are. The top 10 have moved around a little bit. Lenny Papano snuck up in there. We have 3 Draftsharks guys in the top 10 of the Draftsharks Invitational. It's pretty impressive. Got myself at 3rd overall, still yearning, wanting for that yellow. Just I'm never gonna get it. It's funny. I'm watching. I go to check my score Monday night, and I see that I scored like 186 or something. I'm like, I think in a very low scoring week this week, and I'm like, I'm gonna catch Chad. I scroll down, he scored like 211. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
It had to be. Is it Schrader? Right?
Yeah.
It had to be Schrader you were chasing because Abib is in my group.
Yes. Yeah. I was chasing Chad. We're gonna have that segment. It's gonna be the rest of the year called Chasing Chad.
Chasing Chad.
And he just he had another great week, and it was just so. I think I'm just gonna end up sitting with that white on my name all year. So
you don't win anything.
I'm not gonna know. You win nothing. I'm gonna finish 3rd. You win nothing. So, but yeah, Matt Schauf's up there. He's used to being up there. Last year he was in the top 10. He won his league last year. Pat Thorman from Establish the Run. He's new to the top 10 this season. So it's gonna be fun. Maybe we'll have Pat on next week. Maybe I'll reach out to him and get him on. But yeah, it's been fun. Crack Rock's in the top 15. There's Kevin English, another Draftsharks guy, 16th. But I mean, you want me to find you, Mike, or are you
getting closer?
I'm getting closer. That's
there
right.
I am. 860 with a bullet.
There it is. You want to know what's funny is you get these. What's so interesting about these national competitions, right? These single entry competitions. So you've got like the I think the Scott Fish Bowl. Actually, I think isn't Daigle's in like John Daigle's like one of the top 20 teams there, and you've got or maybe it's Pros versus Joes. He is, but he's there, and then you've got just a bunch of names that are look high in some tournaments, but then they're low in some other. It's just interesting how like maybe just draft position alone kind of changed everything. You got Evan Silva's down here in 69. Yeah, he's leading the Pros versus Joes by a mile, I think. And
that's our division.
Yeah, and here he is fourth from the bottom in this one. So it's just very interesting to see.
That's the way to play it. You don't want to end up with 2 28th place finishes. You want first and last.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So
yeah, it means I should look back at his teams in both. I mean, there would have to be some chances taken. He took Patterson, Cordarrelle Patterson in Pros versus Joes, and I remember him taking Andrews and Jackson together.
Yeah,
and I was kind of jealous of that when he did that. I mean, he knows his stuff for sure.
Obviously.
How about who is the key man for? Is that another Mike Williams team, real quick?
Yes, yeah. DS Invite was Mike Williams. It was Cooper Kupp, Mike Evans. It was Najee Harris, Kyler Murray, Matt Stafford. So, yeah, I just like going quarterbacks early in these things just because I don't get to do it in the other drafts. So, and it's fun. Superflex is so much fun.
I put a lot of my stock in this tournament and many other games on the rookie quarterbacks. And that is right now probably the biggest problem I have in fantasy is like Justin Fields. You're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. He's playing at least, but that's almost worse. With Lance, if Lance goes back out, I don't know. I have Fields and Zach Wilson on my team. So 60th might not be that surprising. It is week 7. Mike Williams is injured too, but the Chargers are one of 6 teams on the bye. All I'm reading today on Twitter seems to be people who are, not always complaining, but just sort of pointing out how bereft their lineup is for week 7. And they have, all these Cowboys and Bills and Steelers and so on, 6 teams. I wanted to ask you, Whining I just put up for fun, but how reasonable, how worthy of a complaint is it to make that complaint? Like people sometimes will be kidding when they do it, but it is the 1 week of the football season where the most teams are on bye. It's the only 6-team bye week. And obviously have some prolific offenses. What's the balance between sort of like arriving at this point and like Eckler and CeeDee Lamb and so on, Josh Allen are out. And then also like planning for it, because on one side of the fence, you hear like, look at this is terrible. On the other side, you hear, well, you should have known.
Yeah, I think there's a combination of things. One, that's 6 teams on a bye. And then the other thing is, like you said, Bills, Steelers, Cowboys, Vikings, Chargers, and Jaguars. Who cares? Like those are prolific. Offenses, right? So you've got, if you're doing well, you've got players on those teams, and it's like, it's brutal. And but like, I saw it today. It's like some people are posting, I think Guilds on Twitter posted a roster where he's got like all these Cowboys and I think Steelers on a team. And I think he has like 2 starters that are actually available. And then you've got other people, like Fantasy Mojo was talking like, hey, you should have planned for this. And I'm thinking to myself, I wish I had a small enough amount of teams where I could plan for a week 7 bye. Like but I'm, when I've got waivers for 50 plus teams, I'm just trying to pick up every running back I can find just to have. And I'm planning for the long haul. Week 7 I'll worry about week 7 when I get to week 7. And maybe that's, again, sure, if I've got 3 or 4 teams and I can just spend hours upon hours on each team, I can look weeks and weeks ahead. And as we get closer to the fantasy playoffs, I will be getting rid of teams that are dead and locking in on those teams that I think are going to make me money or have a shot at big money. But yeah, it's hard, especially when you've got, what are you going to do? If you've got 6 guys on a bye, how are you can't prepare for that. You just got to hope, and you got to hope and pray that you've got enough guys that are healthy, and maybe you can grab a guy off the waivers for this week.
It sounded to me that the consensus maybe every year going into drafts is do not worry about it at all when you're drafting. Your Cowboys stack, Steelers, whoever it is you wanted to focus on. Oh, but you have some Vikings or some Bills, just so what? I know, like on ship chasing, they sort of make fun of it. And so I adopted that. And all right, well, I'm not going to worry about it ever. I have a Prescott team in the main event, and we have not addressed backup, right? Or hadn't until last week. We'll just do that when we get to it.
Yeah.
But, what you're saying is you can have too many teams and it becomes impossible. But if you didn't have too many teams, you would do it, right? You would be like on whose bye week is in week 8. How do I avoid, having to start somebody that won't play?
I would do it with if it was week 7, like it is this year, I would do it like week 5. Like I can't, because again, you don't even know who's going to get injured the next week. It's hard enough. And yeah, I'm not worried about bye weeks during draft season, except for those with the FFPC in particular, because if they got the money weeks, right? It depends on what competition I'm in. Like, I wasn't stacking a bunch of week 13 guys. I wasn't because it's big money weeks. I wasn't stacking a bunch of, week 12 or whatever. It was just each draft in particular. I knew that if I'm trying to remember who has the week 13s. I think it's like the Christian McCaffrey. I think that's the
Carolina, Green Bay,
Tennessee, Cleveland. So that was one where like, hey, I wasn't doing Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb. I wasn't doing Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb, or I just didn't want my first 2 picks gone for the weeks that matter the most for the money. So but other than that, I literally didn't even look at bye week.
I'm in a couple of guillotine leagues. I don't know if you do one of those actually, but with those, it seems like you do want to know when the buys are and skew a little bit toward guys whose buys are later. Because if you make it, say you had Kyler Murray or Mahomes, teams that have later buys, if you make it 10 weeks before their buys come or whatever the number is, by then the league is cut in half or so, and you can grab from all these other new players that would not have been available in the draft. So if you have, who is it, Allen or Murray, say, if it's all else equal, you go Murray, and then you don't have the bye week issue come up too soon, and you don't want to. The guillotine league is finish last, you're out. So that's one thing to think about. But
yeah, Louis G and I are actually we're in a Terminator together.
Right.
And I say together, he's done all the heavy lifting, and we're in first place, and he's been doing great. And you got to cut a guy every week. I think bye weeks certainly matter in those too, where you really got to make sure you got a full roster once you're cutting these guys and getting down to kind of the bare minimum.
And you mentioned injuries too. If like take that Guilds team, for example, maybe this applies. If you look at a list like that and you have Eckler and you have Prescott and Lamb and Stephon Diggs or whoever it is that we're talking about, and you have this problem that, nobody's playing, those are probably all guys who've stayed healthy, because if they had a big injury, you could have moved on or done something else. And that's a good thing. It's a different problem than the injury problem, but in a certain way, it's not a bad thing, because those guys have held up for you. And, those are examples of players who have done well. So Whining, it's not really whining, it's kidding. We're just like, but if you're starting players on those teams like Chenault or Claypool or Zach Moss, some of those guys who have not done as well, you might just as soon pivot.
That's right. Get them out of the lineup.
Get them out. One way or another, you got to get them out.
And, we talked too real quick. We talked about this last year a lot with like the rookie running backs and stuff. This is an opportunity for maybe, like we were texting about Mike Williams the other day, like, hey, he needs a rest. Like he's hurt. This is a good opportunity for him. It's perfect timing for the bye. Give him some rest. It might be one of these situations where, hey, let's I forget who just came out of a bye, San Francisco, right? Like let Trey Lance Atlanta. Let some of these offenses that just haven't gotten it going yet. Let them maybe get going here, and maybe some of their studs can come out of the bye. Michael Carter, maybe he comes out of the bye with the Jets, and maybe now he's the guy there. So bye weeks are interesting. Keep your eye on them and really watch some of these young running backs. Remember last year, Jonathan Taylor came out of the bye and just smashed for the rest of the year. His schedule was nice, but a lot of times it gives these coaches and these, because the weeks, even us for fantasy football, it's Monday, bang. Next thing you know, Thursday night, coaches, man, it's hard to really make big overhauls to your philosophy midweek when you've got games six days apart. Give these guys 2 weeks, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and then kind of go from there.
Well, San Francisco being one of those teams, boy, for a couple of weeks here, it was the number one topic on the show is what to do with the 49ers at running back. And so to your point, we'll see how they come out. They play Sunday night. This will be interesting for Mitchell and Sermon and perhaps soon enough Hasty or even Wilson back there, among others. And then also Ayuk, this has been such a terrible season for Ayuk. And then you have, the general manager, John Lynch, making a comment about what he hasn't done right. And just like it seems like it's bad, but they've lost a few games now. And so that's a team that was really favored over the Rams even to win the NFC West. Now they're 2-3, I think, after 2-0.
Yeah.
And you better get it right now. So I've done this before. I've sort of using logic come to the idea that Ayuk, this is going to be when he shines. And he had one good week there, but really it didn't hold up. I kind of want to do that again, on Sunday night. I feel that maybe now is when you're going to play your best players. And if it happens that it's, say, Sermon, who probably most of us have cut by now in this thing, if it happens to be him, then of course we'll have to decide whether to trust it. But Ayuk, if he had a good game, you'd want to think you could trust that. And so they'll be interesting this week. Yeah. I'm glad you brought them up. We have the Jets too. Maybe Elijah Moore as a rookie is somebody else who can sort of step up now that they've had a little bit more time to work on things. So we're talking about the bye weeks, and then you've got these FFPC teams. That's why we're here, the high stakes scene. And it seems like as we'll get into some free agent targets like we do every week, Adam, save or spend. I mean, of course, we're going into week 7, and a lot of us have spent some or all of our money, maybe most of our money, it depends. Before I get into sort of the point I want to make about waivers this week, your philosophy about having money right now, like is it still, if you've got, say you're in the middle of the pack money-wise in your group, you still want to be holding out? Or is it time to go? How do you look at it?
Yeah, if I've got like $600+ right now for a fab budget, I feel really good, especially on a team. Like if I've got a really good team and I still have $600 or $700 fab budget, I'm kind of laying low. Like unless because on some of these really good teams, it's hard to find players to actually drop. Right? You got bye weeks. Yeah, I get you have bye weeks, but if you don't have anyone that's hurt or somebody, and even if they are hurt, you're not just going to drop them. So someone else can have them when they're healthy. So it's hard on your good teams to find guys to drop. And so if I've got 600 or 700, I'm sitting on that and waiting, saying, okay, let me wait for a real significant injury to happen. I want the hammer at the end of the year on teams like that, where my team is good. I'm sitting on some good money, unless there's some random free agent available that's owned in 99% of leagues that could really help me, or unless I've got 7 or 8 guys in a buy and I absolutely have to pick up some players. I'm sitting on that money, and every year it's inevitable. You can grab you'll be grabbing a running back or a receiver at the end there that can even just spot start for you towards the end of the year to get you into the playoffs or during the playoffs there. If I've got a little bit of money, right, I'm okay with spending the rest of it on a player that I think is going to help me, right? So if I've got a bunch of guys in buy, or let's say I've got Nick Chubb is hurt and and Dearness Johnson's out there, like and I need a running back. I don't really care what position I'm in. Like, what am I going to do with $100 at the end of the year? Nothing. You might as well bid most of it, get Dearness Johnson for a week or maybe even 2, or a player like that. I say Alex Collins, but who knows if he's going to start? Penny's back. It's very hard to find like certain situations and stuff like that. But if there is that that running back there you think can help you for a week or two and you need it and you've only got a couple bucks left, you might as well, like, you can't take it with you. So that's where I might look to actually spend it. But yeah, if I got 600 there and I got a solid squad, I'm gonna let everyone else kind of spend their money because I don't need to get players. And then the last couple weeks I'll have the hammer and I can get whoever I want.
Seems like we're at the point of the year where, say, let's go back a month and we're talking about the 49ers, or we're talking about teams who have an injury, Seattle eventually. And, really the discussion about how much to spend or whether to invest on those players really is just on the merits of the team and the player. And what kind of confidence you have in the team, but it's less about your fab, your league, than it is about Elijah Mitchell or Alex Collins or whatever. I feel like if you might think it's a little too early, I don't know, but I feel like now week 7, thinking about it the same way and listening to other people talk about it, really now your record kind of chooses for you what you're going to do. Like in the Browns example, it seems like most people expect, like you said, a game or two for Dearness Johnson, the first of which would be Thursday night. And so really that decision to me entirely comes down to what place I'm in and, and my roster, right? Like,
right.
Would I start him this week? Would I possibly start him next week? That's the buys too. How badly do I need to win? And if you're sitting at the top and you have Zeke and Eckler or whoever, you've got guys on buy, I think I'd be less, I could put a token bid in, but I'd be less likely to win him because I think the winner is somebody who really needs 15, 20 points from this player this week, and they're going to roll the dice. So the situation kind of chooses you at this point, at least sometimes.
Yeah, that's a great point. It can be frustrating as that guy who's maybe at the top of the table, as you would say. And maybe that's right. And maybe that player could really help you. But if I've got a team that's 2-4, and I'm like, this is it, or maybe I said 1-5, 2-4, something like that. Man, I'm dropping 500 on Dearness Johnson because why not? If I lose, it's over. If I lose 2-5, I'm not scoring points, it's over. So I might as well go out firing, try to get Dearness Johnson, maybe strike lightning in a bottle. He has a great game Thursday night or something. Whereas, you've got a team that could really actually use him, to help them, actually get a 1 or 2 seed, and they end up losing out to a bottom of the team. But hey, that's the fun of it, and and then at the end of the day, it doesn't matter when a guy like Xander Bogaerts hits a 2-run home run in the ALCS. You know what I mean?
Where are your stirrups?
Let's go. I almost got it live on the deep end, but I missed it. Son of a gun.
This show is so lucky for you and the Red Sox. Well, Cleveland, every team's different. Cleveland, what makes them different is there are Chubb and Hunt. So a guy like Johnson, you just have you'd be less willing to imagine him playing in those playoff weeks for a team that, strives to get there. It's really for the right now. But having said that, Kareem Hunt could miss a long time.
Yeah.
And so if that happens, what would they do with this guy? Like they've had times where they really ran Nick Chubb hard. It's a very interesting team because they were supposed to win.
Yeah.
And when they went into the game against Arizona, pretty much exactly like I thought they were, 3-2, but they lost at Kansas City and then they lost at the Chargers in close games. Like they might be as good as anybody, but getting smoked like that by Arizona at home changed that for me. That was to me almost a shocking score. So now what are they? Now they're 3-3 with that loss, 2 conference losses that say what you want about how good those teams are. That could still hurt. Baltimore is 2 games up and the Bengals are ahead of them and Mayfield's hurt too. And Beckham and Chubb and Hunt.
Yeah.
So
they're a mess. And it's so interesting, man. Fantasy football, especially when it comes to the running back position, it's all about timing. I mean, you get a guy like Kareem Hunt last year. It happened last year. Hey, Nick Chubb if Nick Chubb goes down, this was one of the headlines last year. Hey, if Nick Chubb goes down, Kareem Hunt's a league winner, getting him in the 5th and 6th round. Nick Chubb went down and Kareem Hunt did, I think he was fine, but he did like the same as he did when Nick Chubb was there. He wasn't any better. He wasn't any worse. This year, same thing. If Nick Chubb goes down, Kareem Hunt in the 5th or 6th round, and Kareem Hunt gets hurt the same game that Nick Chubb isn't there. It's just like, man, you think you can catch a break with the running back. It doesn't. Kareem Hunt's 4 games injured, starts now. Chubb started. Every starting running back is going to miss 4 games. That's just what I've decided 3 weeks ago, except for Myles Gaskin and Chase Edmonds, because I have all the Salvon Ahmed and James Conner you could ever want. So those 2 guys are not going to get hurt.
Henry. I mean,
and of course, yeah.
I don't even mind anymore not having him anywhere. It's just funny.
It's funny.
I still feel like it was the right call. And
I'm going to try to win $500,000 with 0 shares of Derrick Henry.
I know. I got to go back. It's not like it's the right call. He has the rushing lead in the league by 260 yards through 6 games. I mean, you can't say it's the right call not having Derrick Henry on your teams, but it made sense to me. It was a pretty easy decision for me. Like, there was always someone else who you could easily see being a top 5 running back. There was always Taylor or whoever, Mixon, like any of those, Eckler, any of those guys could be picked instead, and often were. And so, and each of those guys has been okay or good of the 3 I named.
Yeah, I mean, and you're not, if you took Devontae Adams, if you took Tyreek Hill, you're not mad. Those guys are doing fine. Those guys are smashing.
You're not mad, but who is your running back, and can he stay on the field, and will he ever score 3 touchdowns in a game like Derrick Henry just seems to do in his sleep?
No.
So
the answer is no.
Yeah. So the Browns have Denver on Thursday night, and we've been through sort of their situation. There's Demetric Felton as well, a free agent idea of a player, more of a receiver type. He's not even what Hunt was. Hunt was you mentioned him, by the way. He was so playable anyway. Your point is well taken on last year and what if Nick Chubb goes out, but he was so playable anyway. In flex for teams that waited on running back. He was a really nice value to have, but that's dead. So does Johnson become Kareem Hunt in addition to being like the number 1 this week? Does Felton have any value? They're probably the most prominent team for the week in waivers.
Yeah, I really like Dearness Johnson. I liked him last year. I just don't know if it was the timing of it or what, but listen, they kept him around. They clearly like him. He's got, what they call track speed. So, he's fast. And maybe something clicks. Now he doesn't have the best matchup this week on Thursday Night Football. Who's he got? He's got Denver. Denver's a negative rushing matchup. But not the worst, he could do worse, and maybe Denver can't run away with the game either against Cleveland. So with Teddy Bridgewater, so we'll see. I mean, again, with the bye weeks and the injuries, if you get Dearness Johnson, you're starting him and you're crossing your fingers. But I think Dearness Johnson is the guy there. I think Felton is more of like a receiver for them. So if I'm looking for a guy that's going to get the most touches in that backfield, I think it's most certainly Dearness Johnson.
We talked about this a little bit earlier, but in terms of the bye weeks, you might be able to. This seems like a good thought, at least. Find guys who are on bye week now. Maybe they got cut because people did look ahead, and who might that be? It's probably not going to be Alexander Madison, but somebody out there, a Freiermuth, maybe somebody that a team didn't have the space. And they're like me, and they've been hoarding Michael Thomas or Judy or Gallup for so many weeks, and just you get crunched. But that seems like a good idea too.
Yeah, I mean, you might get like a Devin Singletary might hit the waivers this week. Something where a guy's just been a little disappointing. He's a backfield kind of committee guy. It's not going to be Madison, but
no.
But something like that where you get kind of these guys that get dropped and they're owned in 99% of leagues, and you can snatch them up, and you're a Zach Moss injury away from an RB2 or just a spot start guy. Just keep collecting running backs, collect as many as you possibly can.
Yeah, Singletary is a good name for that. The Charger running backs after Eckler, really nothing has manifested there. I mean, Josh Kelly was on the field in this last game, the Baltimore game, but you had Roundtree and then Justin Jackson. Really, it's been Eckler, it's been Justin Herbert in the passing game. Nobody has really sort of become the backup option. I guess you could pick 1 or 2 of them anyway, of teams that are on bye this week too. Who else do you have in mind?
Yeah, I don't think Rashad Bateman's going to be available in a lot of spots, and I really, really liked Rashad Bateman coming out of college. For what it's worth, I had him as my number 2 or 3 receiver coming out. I love the way that he played. And we'll see, man, with Lamar Jackson and they're without any running backs there. They're throwing the ball more. He's got all day to throw. He's got that, like Bateman, maybe not this week or the next week, but he might be one of these playoff push rookie receivers. Cause I do think he's maybe not this year, but I think he's going to be the most talented receiver there. And maybe the most talented one he's ever had. So if he's available, you want to bet on talent there. So I really like that. And maybe not Alex Collins, because I think he's probably owned, but go grab some of these Seahawks running backs, right? Because you just never know. You've got Chris Carson's on the IR. Collins might not play. Rashad Penny's coming back. I'm blanking on the other guy.
DJ Dallas.
DJ Dallas had a great game or two last year when they needed him. He's another talented guy. They love to pound the ball. Geno Smith is awful, so they have to run it. Again, you're just getting all running backs. You mentioned kind of Jeff Wilson and Hasty earlier. Go grab every running back you can find, because Cleveland just lost 2 in a couple days. Like, it's just, those guys in run first offenses, Pete Carroll doesn't care who's back there. He's going to hand them the ball, and they got a shot to score once or even twice. And then what do you think of the Ravens backfield, Mike? Because that's a backfield that I'd be looking to target, maybe Devonta Freeman this week, because I don't think Murray's playing. Maybe they bring Tyson Williams. Maybe they activate him.
Well, what's your ceiling with any of them? It is Baltimore. Williams is the only one I've been on.
Yeah.
And I still have him on a couple of benches because it looked like there was some juice there with him.
Yes.
But it hasn't happened. I mean, he's not even consistently dressing for games. He's a rookie, and he's not Jonathan Taylor, but maybe you have a season here where he works his way into it, and these other guys might also break down, and there you go. So I think he should be rostered, Williams, but really, like, you have different options here in terms of what you would expect to get from these players. You have on good teams or even pretty good teams, you want these guys like you're talking about with the Seahawks, I think, that could end up being starters, that could end up being what Collins was the last 2 weeks. I mean, I've benefited from that. I decided I wanted to do that because the Carson thing sounded bad to me. He could still be back in a couple of weeks, and Collins got hurt too. But, at least I got a couple good weeks out of him if that's it. So you have those guys. Then you have players that are 6 or 8 points, maybe even on a good day. Like, what's Gio Bernard,
Right.
Somebody, like, he's probably on most teams. I didn't look this up, but I was looking at him on a roster, on a bench of mine. I'm like, am I ever going to start him? I mean, no. They have to be an underdog, and maybe there has to be an injury. I know he scored a touchdown the one game. What would cause me to start Gio Bernard? Like, that's somebody I feel like I should move on from and take, like an Ozigbo from New Orleans, or somebody that you might end up starting in a week. If there's an injury, you just need the injury for it to benefit you. But I just think, like, some of those, Gainwell maybe is another one where what are the circumstances where you would put him in your lineup? I mean, it seems pretty dire.
Well, with Gainwell, at least if Sanders goes down, I think you would start Gainwell pretty confidently. Okay. But what would happen? What would need to happen in Tampa? I mean, they'd have to lose, it'd have to be crazy because he's not getting carries, there. So as far as Gio Bernard, so it's like, Gio Bernard's a good example. Another guy that might be a free agent in some leagues. I don't think he is anymore though. But I know we don't talk a lot about start sit advice here. But, with the bye weeks and injuries, a guy that I was looking through rosters today and trying to figure out, where I need to pick up players. But Ramondre Stevenson is a guy.
I knew you were going to say him.
Did you know I was going to say that?
Yeah.
He's a guy that I'm probably going to start. I mean, they're playing the Jets, and, they're one of the worst run defenses in football. And Stevenson's looked really good, and they've been nothing but complimentary about him the last couple of times they've spoken about him. He had a little bit of I think most of the pass catching role the last game. I mean, he's a guy that is going to be in a couple of my lineups this week with injuries and bye weeks. And if he's available, I'm sure he's available somewhere. Go grab him, and you're probably going to start him. And he's a Damian Harris injury away from being, I mean, I think he's as good as Damian Harris, but that doesn't matter. But, a lot of these guys they need an injury. They get in there and they never give it up. It's the whole, just don't fumble, Ramondre. And I think you'll be fine.
He'll be in a couple of your lineups. Your teams are usually good. Over under 11.5 for a beer.
Woo!
All right, for two, fine. A beer.
I'm gonna go over. Of course, I'm going over.
Yeah, I'll say under 11.5. I don't hate it, but it's the Jets. Damian Harris really owned that game at the Jets. The Jets are gonna have to score points, which maybe they will, because that's what happens sometimes.
I just need Damian Harris to fumble once, and Ramondre is gonna crush at 11.5.
He's got injuries, but he seemed to make it through that and get a lot of volume against Dallas. Harris, but I'm not disagreeing with you on Stevenson. And it reminds me of how you were talking about Bateman before, because the Ravens, the Ravens are 5-1, and they're not going to be here for let's justify our draft picks. Let's work in the rookies. They're there to win.
Right.
But I do think, all else equal, teams want to do that. And that is a first round pick for a team that has led the league in point differential 2 years in a row. That's a serious team. And they thought, this is the guy we need for our offense. How different is it with Marquise Brown emerging like he has? I don't know if it's that different, or even Watkins and the role he's played so far. So I am definitely on Bateman. He was supposed to be in a lineup for me last week. It actually, very interesting team, not a good one. It backfired that he didn't play for us. That's how sort of thin we were. But I was ready to go to him last week. He had 6 targets, and he had a drop. I think I like that. I like that a lot, because I think you have the team incentive, and then you have the talent. And I think there's an opening there for him. Baltimore and Cincinnati this week. Baltimore just has interesting games every week. This is a rare one that is not on at night. They've had 3 night games already. Okay. 5-1, the Ravens. Anybody else for free agent targets, or you want to go to Michael Thomas?
Yeah,
I got a couple things to say about Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I think we're good on that free agent targets.
Okay. What a headache.
What a headache.
Right.
Moving on.
Well, you draft a guy that's really the situation here. Like, this is, your mom is going to sit you down. You didn't do your homework, and she's going to lecture you on the importance of it. And what is the lecture in terms of drafting Michael Thomas? Is why did you draft a known injured player, somebody that we're talking about roster crunches all night, somebody that you knew would miss what? What did we know? We were in Las Vegas. We knew 4 weeks, at least 4 to 6. Is what we thought.
For whatever reason, in my mind, I have him coming back. His earliest was like week 7.
Okay, which is now.
That's right. That's what I remember. I think he's eligible. He was eligible to come back this week, maybe, because what is he on? He was on the pup, right? Or no?
Yeah. He had COVID and he went back, but he has not been announced back or anything. Traquan Smith has.
Yeah, they're saying he's 2 or 3 weeks away.
Did you pick much Michael Thomas?
I think I have. Before the injury, I had 1 share because I just didn't believe in Winston and all that. And then I think I have 1 share after the injury in like the,
round
9th
8
or 10th or so, whatever, somewhere in there. So I'm not holding my breath for him, but
did you ever wish you could draft Michael Thomas in those drafts, or was it easy not to?
Easy not to. I just he's a route runner. He's an underneath timing route runner. And that is not Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill. So I was already off him in the third round. But it's funny how whenever guys get, maybe now in the 8th round or the 9th round or something like that. And listen, he could still do something for you. Something. I mean, he's probably a flex when he comes back. But the thing is, I saw a couple random tweets today from different people that were just like, trade Michael Thomas to someone who thinks that he's actually going to play this year. Like, and you said that 2 months ago that you thought like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Michael Thomas doesn't even play.
Well, there was discord with him and the organization as well. I mean, you point out you drafted before the injury, right? We didn't know all year that he had this injury. He didn't get work on it until well into the offseason, which was another point of contention. They're not so good. I don't know what the relationships are like, but apart from that, they're not so good where, you're hearing much buzz about it or feel like there's necessarily a lot of enthusiasm for this. I don't know. I mean, his injury is the thing, but guys will play that differently. Teams will play that differently depending on those circumstances. So I really don't know where we are on Thomas. I just sort of regret doing it because I think, maybe this is a trap that a lot of people fall into. You get into those rounds and you're in love with the picks you've made already. You've got, your hero RB and you've got Kareem Hunt, say, and, you love having AJ Brown or Metcalf or Jefferson, that group of guys. And you've got your tight end and maybe you've got Dak Prescott or something. And you're like, now what? Do I want to pick Michael Thomas or do I want to pick Marvin Jones? Like, oh, I'm not going to need Michael Thomas. Look at this. And I'll draft Elijah Moore or Rondale Moore, and I'll just draft Ramondre Stevenson, whatever. Like, obviously these are names that I was high on mostly. But it's funny how you learn, not always, but it's funny how you get to a point where you're like, what am I going to do here? Because now I'm starting Van Jefferson, or I'm trying to pick up Khalif Raymond, and I've got Michael Thomas sitting here taking up space all year. Like, you do not want to have the feeling where you get to those critical weeks, like week 10, maybe, or whatever that is in your mind, and have him still sitting there on your bench having not played at all.
I think it too depends on the mindset of the actual team, right? Like if I'm 2-4 and I'm like, oh God, I've had Michael Thomas sitting here all year, but I'm 5-1 and I go, oh man. And I still got Michael Thomas. It's like the whole Jerry Jeudy thing. Now Jeudy, obviously, I think is going to have a much better play season and has better whatever. But like, I've got some really good teams with Jeudy. I'm like, oh man, wait till he comes back. Wait till Michael Thomas comes back. I think it just depends on the team, whether you can afford to have him hanging out there, whether whether he can help you, like, because that's the other thing. If he comes back and let's say maybe you hit on Mike Williams. Mm-hmm. You hit on Mike Williams in the 8th round. So now you've got a couple good, like maybe you just don't have room for Michael Thomas in your starting lineup. It's like, so that's a whole nother thing is, you nailed Mike Williams, you nailed Cooper Kupp. You've already got Tyreek Hill. Now what am I going to do with Michael Thomas?
He comes back and you still don't even really want to play him. That would be
that's what I'm saying. It's like
a good problem.
and then you're really like, my God, he sat here for 13 weeks on my team.
Well, week 7, I mean, I've got him say 2 or 3 times in big tournaments, and I'm not letting go. But if it's week 9, you've got these bye week issues, right? You need space. I mean, would you cut Michael Thomas before? I want to do the other way around. Would you cut one of these running backs we're talking about who are just hopefuls in case of an injury, or would you cut Thomas first? Depends on your roster composition and everything. It would just be so embarrassing. Like if you get to week 8 or 9 and you've had Thomas the whole time, the other person thinks, why did you draft him? I mean, how much better did you expect that to go than this? And really, that's the right question. I mean, how much better was it supposed to go than week 8 at the earliest or 9 at the earliest?
Yeah, and I can guarantee you, if he's out like week 8, week 9, you're going to have teams. You will have teams dropping him, and you will have teams, that are just salivating to pick him up because they're going to be like, oh man, I'm 8-3, I'm 9-2. Oh, he can sit on my bench and, and whatever. Like it's all in the eye of the beholder and the situation. And it's going to be very, very interesting with him coming down the stretch.
It's the thing about this structure. Like a lot of these leagues, the main event, you don't really know necessarily anybody else in your league. You don't go to work with them and be like, trade me Michael Thomas, or how could you drop him and let Joe pick him up or anything like that. There's just none of that. It's just
always
like,
Joe.
It is always Joe. I'm going to cut him because it's in my best interest to do it. And that can be a perfectly correct position. And then Adam Krautwurst is over there going, just licking his chops
That's right.
And, what is Joe supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Like, just keep him to make a point? What's the value in that?
Right. Exactly.
All right. Well, Denver, Cleveland Thursday night, big bye week. Really getting into it with the season. It's got to start to happen. If you're 2-4, like you said, it's go time. It better be go time. We're through the all plays. Those all plays were fun, just quickly, because if you're in the middle, like it's a much greater opportunity or greater chance of it being close last night. And it was a great game for fantasy. Just a lot of changes in the standings, a lot of movement. I had a couple teams in the middle. You probably did too, where it was just right down to the end.
Yeah, that was fun. And it's funny because I remember talking to you before the season started, like, hey, in football, guys, in main event, like what number am I looking for to score each week to kind of try to be competitive? And I think I said 150 usually will get you a win. And that was it from, at least for all the teams I had this week, was like, if you scored 150 or more, you got the win. If you scored less than 150, you probably lost. I think I had like 6 teams scoring the 140s in the football guys. And I think one of them won. All the other 140s teams lost. And the only recommendation I have for FFPC, and I'm going to email Chris like she cares, on the all play, I wish when you just looked at your scores, it would be green or red based on where you stood. Because you had to go into every one to see if you had been in the top 6. But yeah, no, it was fun. And hey, listen, if you scored points, like there was no, how many times I've scored 160 and lost? Not this week. If I scored 160, I won. And that's what I really like about the all play. Make every week an all play week. So that's fine. Fine by me.
I got a win in the main event at 147.6. And there was a 146 and a 144 right behind me. 146 was Josh Allen, and 144 was Diggs and Sanders. And so that was right down to the last play. We had Bass. So we escaped there. Right down to the last play of that game. And my partner on that team was at the game. And he's one of the biggest Bills fans I know, like you are. And usually I would text him all through the Monday night game. How are we doing? He's watching every play and we're going over it. This one, we did less of that because he's at the stadium in Nashville. And Josh Allen slips and gets stopped on the last play to lose the game for the Bills. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to wait to tell him that we won because of that. Because he might not be in the mood to hear it. He might not care that we won. But turns out he got.
Well, you know why Josh Allen didn't. Well, you know why he didn't get in, right? It's because Taylor Lewan wasn't out there for the Buffalo Bills.
I heard that. Yeah, not quite.
How does that happen? I want to. How does you're a professional in the industry?
Thank you.
How does that happen? You go on national, what is it, Fox or ESPN, and you tell the world that Taylor Lewan, if he wasn't hurt for the Buffalo Bills, that Josh Allen runs it in there. I mean, how does?
Well, look, it's Chris Broussard, and I mean, everybody makes mistakes. I've got 25 years of this, and I've made hundreds of mistakes, if not thousands. The thing about that one is, who is the guy that knows the name of the lineman, but would get that wrong? It's somebody who was sort of like cramming or been told the name of the lineman. It's like nobody who really knows it would ever know who Taylor Lewan is, and then put him on the Bills in that moment. It's just sort of fake, right? Like
so fake. I mean, yes. And I was talking to the guy today, and they were like, someone must have fed him a cue card. Like someone must have been pissed at him, and it's like the whole like Ron Burgundy thing. Like he just says whatever's on the teleprompter. Like,
yeah. I mean, again, I sympathize with the guy because it's happened to me so many times, just different things like that. And somebody listening could be like, how could you not know that? But, you talk all day, every day, and you get things wrong. But that one is just like, again, who would know the name of the lineman?
That's what I'm saying.
Say, he didn't have his left tackle, Taylor Lewan. Like, what fan, the most casual fan in your office, are they making that point and then getting the teams mixed up? No, of course not. Like, just nobody's making that.
And then he's got this Deion Dawkins guy out there.
Right. Was the problem was he was in the 2 gap or something? Like just like, who's making that mistake?
That's what happens when you pull an NBA insider off the street to come talk NFL football.
I don't know. I'll talk curling with you anytime, and you can call me whatever kind of insider I am. All right, that'll do it. Thanks for watching The Deep End. Good luck in week seven. Tweet at us anytime you want at The Deep End FF1. Adam Krautwurst. I'm Shope Talk, SCHOPPTALK. Easy enough to find. And if you like the show, let us know. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Good luck.
See you guys.